get through people's heads sooner or later, but they don't want to hear it. They see this visual image of an airliner crashing into a building that is designed to withstand an impact. Then they see a few flames, which, by the way, are suffocating very quickly through oxygen starvation. The fuel's exhausted itself. And then all of a sudden, you have 400,000 cubic yards of concrete being pulverized into fine powder. I mean, you're talking powder in the grade of a few microns. Some as small as 1 micron. This is not buckling. Some engineer I was talking to in the state of denial said, "Oh, this is buckling collapse." You know, this is absurd. Buckling collapse does not pulverize concrete. It cannot do it. There's simply it takes only explosives can do this. I ask your listeners to go back, watch some of these videos, get the original footage, and watch very carefully the collapse of these buildings. You can actually see the sequence of the explosives going off floor by floor by floor. There are firemen who attest to this, who've seen it, felt it, heard it. You know, the so-called pancake theory is another absurdity. Let's presume they're correct, and all of these floors pancaked one on top of each other and descended. It cannot do this at free fall speed, because each floor beneath it would impede the progress of the one above it to some degree. So it would have to be impeded progressively. It would have taken quite a while for these to come down. This was a complete gravity drop. 8.1 seconds, the entire building is dust. Even if the floors collapsed, what you'd end up with is the entire 47-beam steel core sticking up like a finger straight into the sky. Because the floors were simply bolted onto these things. What happened to this entire core? The entire core ended up into a bubbling, molten mass of steel in the basement. People don't get it through their heads. Kerosene can't do this. Cutting cord torches can do this. Explosives can do this.
Really? Why did this thing smoke and burn for like, what was it?
5 weeks, Dave.
5 weeks, yeah.
And over 2,000, I have thermal imagery taken by USCG aircraft and from USGS and from NASA aircraft. 2,000-degree fires smoldering and bubbling.
That doesn't make
underground.
sense.
Where are the cores, the steel cores of these buildings? How do you get kerosene to cause steel to bubble for 5 weeks at 2,000 degrees? It's impossible.
I guess that doesn't make any difference. It's impossible. If the government says it, and if Dan Rather tells you that, well, then that's the way it is. And don't confuse me with the facts. Don't tell me about common sense. Don't show me photographs. Don't do anything that makes me think for myself, because I can't, I won't, and you can't make me. And that seems to be the attitude of the general population.
And Dave, when people watch these two towers collapsing, they should also see the clouds of dust and the steel beams. These are beams, each weighing several tons, being ejected upwards and outwards at about 250 feet per second. What kind of a buckling collapse causes that? It's impossible.
Kidding. It is. We've got to take another break. We'll be back, and we will start taking your phone calls. First up, let me see, we got Mike, Donna, Fred, Ted. Everybody's lined up here, so when we come back, we're going to hit the phones. This is Dave and Joyce, and man, I tell you, we're tearing the roof off the sucker. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Monday morning edition of the Power Hour. Coming up on 55 minutes past the hour, whatever hour you're sitting in, and I'm very pleased to have as a return guest Nila Sagadevan, who is an airline pilot, experienced 30 years, and basically he's coming out like so many other pilots are. We've spoken to, over 2 dozen now. And all but one of them agree 100% with what the video and photographic evidence shows, and that is that it is impossible for an airliner to have created the damage at the Pentagon, and the planes that slammed into the targets on September 11th in New York City are likely not the planes that took off from the airports. Now, I know this is hard for a lot of people to understand and to accept. But the photographic and video footage and common sense is screaming this. And so are many other military persons. I mean, gosh, we've talked to colonels and generals and stuff, and they see this stuff and they agree with us. So anyway, Nila, again, thank you for staying with us. Is there any other points that you want to make? Because we are backed up from here to Cincinnati with phone calls.
Well, there are simply too many points to raise on this thing, Dave, because, you can go on and on about it. You can talk about insider trading. You can talk about Bush's behavior. People ask, how could guys have got into these towers to place explosives? Very few people know that Bush's brother, Marvin Bush, was a director of Stratosec. Stratosec was a company that was responsible for the security of every one of those buildings in the World Trade Center and Dulles Airport, from which Flight 77 took off. His cousin, Wirt Walker, was the CEO of Stratosec, the same security company. You can talk about the Caspian Sea gas reserves and what the statement that Cheney made. You can go on and on. I think one of the most important things, some listener the last time that I was on your show, from Canada, from France, I forget where he called from, he asked about remote control technology and so forth, and we didn't get a chance to go through with that. And that's a very interesting area because I got a lot of information on that about technologies that were devised by a chap by the name of Dov Zakheim. He's actually a rabbi, and this man was the former comptroller of the Pentagon, and he ran a company. He was the CEO of a company called Systems Planning Corporation, SPC. And these guys, their claim to fame is the flight termination system. It's called an FTS, which allows the takeover and control of an aircraft prior to takeoff or during flight. And it allows one controller to handle 8 aircraft in the skies. People don't open their minds to this kind of information because they would rather slip into their cocoons and live in their comfort zones. As Jack Nicholson screamed, you can't handle the truth. Let's go to our first call. Mike in Washington. Thank all of you for holding on, but we wanted to get to a couple of these salient points, and Neil is going to be staying with us into the next hour. So, Mike, you're up first. Go ahead.
Dave, how you doing?
All right, go ahead.
First of all, I want to tell you that you gave a really moving speech in the Jimmy Walter video, and I really enjoyed hearing you talk on that.
Thank you.
It was wonderful. That was a really good video. And I was going to bring up the fact that Marvin Bush was the head of security, and he was the one that had access, but your guest beat me to it. But another thing I wanted to point out about the Pentagon, the most surveilled piece of property on the planet, it has a parallel there. It also lost $3.4 trillion in the last 2 years because their computers don't communicate.
Okay.
Did you hear about that?
I hadn't heard about it.
No, I hadn't.
Oh yeah. Oh well. I have the Donald Rumsfeld. Cynthia McKinney confronts Donald Rumsfeld, and she points out that in fiscal year 2000 and in the fiscal year 2000, 1.1 trillion is missing from the Pentagon, and fiscal year 1999, 2.3 trillion. Trillion with a T dollars is missing from the Pentagon, and their excuse is because their computers do not communicate. So if the computers don't communicate, I guess the video cameras don't work, and I don't know.
I know it's frustrating, isn't it? Anyway, we got to take our top of the hour break. Is there anything else, Mike?
No. God bless you guys.
All right, you take it easy. We'll be back in a short break. 1 minute 10 seconds. Hour number 3, steamrolling your way. Stay right there.
Thanks, Daddy. Well, people looking at the bottom of the plane that hit the South Tower, now they're looking again. There was something on the bottom, then there was a flash, but I really don't care, 'cause I'm raking in the cash. Now let's roll.
War means money, folks. Put 2 and 2 together and come up with something other than 3 or 5 or 9, or in the case of Halliburton's contracted award, $27.5 million to transport 87,000 gallons of liquid propane from Kuwait to Baghdad. Go figure. Don't tell me it's not about money, folks. Welcome back to hour number 3 of today's Monday morning installment of the Power Hour. This is Dave Von Kleist and Joyce Riley, and we have a guest returning that just is blowing everybody's mind, including mine. Our guest is Nila Sagadevan, and he is also on a digital phone line, which is why he sounds almost better than I do. You use that a whole lot, don't you, sir? Okay, well, anyway, we've got phone calls and phone calls and phone calls, so let's jump right back in there. Fred in Philadelphia, thank you so much for holding for so long. You're on the air with our guest. Go ahead, please.
Neil, I want to ask you, make sure to give your contact information as soon as you can. And also, I think that the pilots should speak as one, the 20 pilots that Dave mentioned as being more knowledgeable and coming out with common sense thesis as to what happened on 9/11, and make sure that the pilots have sufficient security in their own lives after this point.
Okay, go ahead.
All
Go
right.
ahead. Where do we go from here? Go ahead. You go ahead and comment.
Who am I speaking with?
That's Fred in Philadelphia.
Hi, Fred. Are you a pilot?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
There's a little pregnant pause here. Fred, what's your question? Clarify, please.
Well, no, just
a comment, right?
Just to have stay in contact with each other, and that the people that believe the same thesis as to the events of 9/11 as you do, stay in contact with each other and support each other and have sufficient security.
I see. I get your point. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Let's go to Ted in New York. Ted, you're up and running. Go ahead.
Yes, I was commenting on your discussion about the Pentagon earlier. The landing gear certainly would remain intact, and there's also, what supports more of a UAV theory is that picture of those, it was like 4 guys or 6 guys in uniform hauling something away with a tarp over it.
Exactly.
You probably remember that photo.
I'm looking at it as we speak.
Yeah, and, what could that be? Why are they hiding it? Why are they covering it,
And look at the guys who are picking this thing up. There are guys who have no business picking up a 10-pound weight. These guys are completely overweight, wearing suspenders, 60 years old, helping a bunch of young lads taking something out of the Pentagon that's covered in a blue tarp. This is nonsense.
Yeah. I was flipping channels this morning before leaving for work, and I noticed they the commission is re-met to see what the government was doing, to implement their findings. When instead, what they ought to be doing is asking more questions.
Oh, the questions are interminable. You can go on with this thing for years. None of the questions have been answered in the so-called 9/11 Commission report. None of them. It's a complete whitewash.
Well, there were softball questions, too. I mean, there were things that they never even brought up Building 7. Not a mention of Building 7 in the entire report. I mean, what's wrong with this picture? Not only that, but, they spent $300 million investigating Monica Lewinsky and a cigar, and they only spent $60 million investigating September 11th. What's wrong with this picture?
And the clean sweep of a crime scene. Look what they did to the Pentagon. Every scrap of it was taken out. In fact, there's some footage of a news helicopter of a human chain of about 100 people carefully walking across the Pentagon lawn, picking up piece by piece. Who sanitizes a crime scene like this?
No
is
kidding.
Unheard of.
On television. I mean, that's exactly right. They went through and they destroyed the evidence, and they showed everybody that they were doing it. I mean,
Twin Towers, they shipped the steel out to China.
Yeah, and it's probably the hull of a big ship. I don't know. I don't even want to get... I'm getting upset. Hey, Ted, thank you for the call. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Megan, Ed, y'all stay right there, and we'll get to the calls. Stay there. Hi, everybody. This is Dave Enclaves.
And Joyce Riley.
And we all know knowledge is power, and that's why we call this the Power Hour. The opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of the staff, management, sponsors of this radio station, or why not? George Bush. That's obvious.
Et al. Every other person in that administration.
No kidding. Anyway, it is Monday. It is the 6th of June, 2005. And, time goes by when you're really having a good time. And we sure did have a wonderful time this past weekend.
Yes, I didn't
West
mention,
Virginia.
Yes, excuse me, Dave, honey. I wanted to tell people that I got to meet Lisa Molinex. Those of you who remember Lisa, she is an incredible young lady. She is a teacher, Spanish teacher. Her parents listened to the program, I understand, and they were there. Her parents brought 2 other couples from Ohio or Pennsylvania, and Lisa came up on stage. And just to give you an update on Lisa Molinex, their 5-month-old, beautiful, absolutely beautiful baby received a vaccine, and several hours later I really don't want to go into all the story, but because of some legal issues, but they took him in for charges. And he is now...
Took the baby in for charges?
They took the husband in for charges, and the baby died. The baby died as a result of what we believe to be a vaccine reaction. Well, anyway, or what I believe to be a vaccine reaction. And he is an incredible young man who loved that baby more than life. He doesn't have any record of any kind, not even a parking ticket. And they now want the death penalty for him.
Wow.
So they do have a law firm that is taking the case, and I just want to tell them that the listeners, that Lisa came to the meeting to express her gratitude to all the Power Hour listeners, and what a lady she is. What a lady.
The pharmaceutical companies do not want America to find out about